Most people you admire, they didn't start confidently. They didn't start connected. They didn't start influentially. At the beginning, they were like you are today. They were ignored, overlooked, underestimated. People didn't listen when they spoke, didn't take them seriously, didn't respect them. And here's the uncomfortable question. If that's true for them, why do we assume something is wrong with us when we're not respected yet? What if the problem isn't your personality? What if it's not your background, your age, your gender, or your past? What if respect follows psychology, not luck? Because right now they're ordinary people. No louder, no smarter, no more talented than you, who walk into rooms and people pay attention. Not because they demand it, but because they earned it. And today you're going to see how. 5 psychology secrets, not tactics, not manipulation. Identity shifts. If you recognize yourself in this story, stay with me. Because by the end, you won't see respect the same way again. The first psychology secret to earn respect is this. Let's slow this down. Because this is where respect actually begins. Not with confidence, not with talent, not with how loud you are. It begins with emotional control. Most people think authority comes from intensity, from passion, from pushing harder. But watch the people who are truly respected. They don't rush. They don't react instantly. They don't let their emotions drive the conversation. They choose their response. And that choice changes everything. Here's a story. There was a young professional early in his career. Smart, motivated, hungry to prove himself. Every meeting mattered to him. Every comment felt personal. So when something didn't go his way, his face showed it. His voice tightened. His energy spiked. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. But people felt the tension. And tension breaks trust. People around him started doing something subtle. They stopped challenging him. Stopped relying on him in high-pressure moments. Stopped seeing him as steady. Not because he wasn't capable, because he wasn't regulated. Then one moment changed him. A tough conversation. A lot on the line. Instead of reacting, he paused, he breathed, he lowered his voice. He asked a question instead of defending himself, and something strange happened. The room softened. People leaned forward. They listened, not because he dominated, but because he stabilized the space. That was the moment authority showed up. Here's the psychology. The human brain is wired for safety. When someone stays calm under pressure, our nervous system relaxes. And relaxed people trust. Trust leads to influence. Influence leads to respect. That's why the most respected person in the room is often the calmest one. Not the quietest, not the loudest, the steadiest. Now let's get honest. Most people don't lose respect because they lack skill. They lose respect in emotional moments, a sharp reply, a defensive tone, an unnecessary explanation. And once people sense emotional unpredictability, they pull back. Not consciously, instinctively. Ask yourself this. When someone challenges you, what happens inside your body? Does your chest tighten? Does your mind race? Do you feel the urge to prove something? That urge is human, but authority begins when you don't act on it. Because the moment you control your emotional response, you control the direction of the interaction. Here's a powerful shift. You don't need to win every moment. You need to stay centered. Highly respected people understand this. They don't interrupt. They don't rush to correct. They let silence work for them. Silence creates weight. Silence signals confidence. Silence tells others, I'm not threatened. And that message is powerful. Think about leaders you admire. Intense moments. Do they explode? Or do they slow everything down? They speak fewer words. But every word matters. Because emotional control isn't suppression, it's mastery. Here's something practical. The next time pressure hits, pause for 2 seconds. Lower your voice slightly. Slow your breathing. That small pause tells your brain, I'm in control. And your body follows. People feel it, even if they don't know why. Let me ask you something important. Who do you respect more? The person who reacts fast, or the person who responds intentionally? Exactly. Respect follows restraint. This is why emotional control creates authority. Because authority isn't about force. It's about presence. It's not about being unshakable. It's about being grounded. And the moment you master this, you don't need to demand respect. People offer it. Naturally. Quietly. Consistently. And once you experience that shift, you realize something powerful. Control the emotion. And the authority follows. The second psychology secret to earn respect is this. Let's talk about a trap. a quiet one, a comfortable one, and one that destroys respect slowly. The need to be liked. Most people don't realize when it happens. They soften their words. They add extra explanations. They say maybe when they mean no, not because they're weak, because they're human. But highly respected people made a different decision early on. They chose clarity. Here's a story. There was a woman in a fast-moving environment, talented, reliable, always prepared. People liked her, but they didn't listen to her. Every time she shared an idea, she wrapped it in disclaimers. I could be wrong. This might sound silly. Just my opinion, she thought she was being polite. What she was really doing was training people not to take her seriously. Then one moment changed everything. A decision had to be made. Time was tight. Instead of explaining for 3 minutes, she said one sentence. This is the direction I recommend. Here's why. No apology, no over-justification, just clarity. Focused quietly. People started asking her questions, not because she was louder, because she was clear. Here's the psychology. The brain craves certainty. Clarity feels safe. Clarity feels confident. Clarity feels like leadership. Confusion creates doubt. That's why people follow those who can simplify complexity, not those who try to please everyone. Let's be real. Trying to be liked feels good in the moment. You avoid tension, you avoid conflict, you avoid discomfort, but you pay a price. People stop seeing you as decisive. They stop trusting your direction. They start overlooking your voice. And once that pattern forms, it's hard to break. Ask yourself this. Where are you holding back your real opinion to keep the peace? Where are you adding extra words to avoid someone's reaction? Where are you choosing comfort over clarity? Because every time you do, you teach people how to treat you. Highly respected people don't explain themselves emotionally. They don't rush to be understood. They say what needs to be said, calmly, directly, respectfully. And then they stop talking. That pause does something powerful. It tells others, I trust my position. This doesn't mean being cold. It means being clean. Clean language, clean boundaries, clean decisions. You can be kind and clear, warm and firm. In fact, that combination is what earns the most respect. Here's a simple shift you can use today. Before you speak, ask yourself one question. Am I speaking to be liked or to be understood? Then remove the extra words. Say the sentence. Let it land. Consider the individuals you respect the most. They don't ramble. They don't hedge every statement. They don't chase agreement. They stand by their words. And that consistency builds trust. Let me ask you something important. If you don't take your own words seriously, why should anyone else? Exactly. Clarity is not risky. Lack of clarity is. This is why clarity beats likability. Because respect doesn't come from pleasing people. It comes from leading yourself first. And once you make that shift, people stop guessing where you stand. They start listening. And that's when respect begins. The third psychology secret to earn respect is this. This one is invisible. No one claps for it. No one sees it happen. But it changes everything. Before people respected them publicly, highly respected people shifted something privately. Their identity. Not what they said out loud. What they said to themselves. Let me paint a picture. There was someone with real potential. Capable. Observant. Thoughtful. But every time an opportunity showed up, they hesitated. Not because they lacked skill, because of a quiet voice in their head. Who do you think you are? You're not ready. People like you don't do this. No one else said it. But that voice decided their posture, their tone, their timing. And people felt it. Here's the hard truth. The world responds to how you see yourself, not what you say you believe. What you embody. If you see yourself as temporary, your actions become cautious. If you see yourself as replaceable, your voice becomes softer. And people don't disrespect you intentionally. They respond to the signals you send. Then something shifted. Instead of waiting to feel ready, they changed the language inside. I'm learning. I'm allowed to take space. I can figure this out. Nothing dramatic, but consistent. And slowly, behavior changed. They sat differently. They paused before speaking. They finished their sentences. And something surprising happened. People started listening. Here's the psychology. Your brain is designed to protect identity. If you see yourself as not enough, your brain avoids risk. But if you see yourself as someone who grows, Your brain supports action. Identity drives behavior. Behavior builds reputation. Reputation earns respect. Always in that order. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. When you enter a room, do you feel like you belong? Or do you feel like you're borrowing space? Because people can sense the difference, not consciously, instinctively. Highly respected people don't wait for permission. They don't announce confidence. They assume responsibility. They speak when it's time. They stay quiet when it's not. And they trust their judgment enough to let their words stand. This isn't arrogance. Arrogance overcompensates. This is quite certain. The kind that doesn't need validation. Here's a practical shift. Pay attention to one phrase. You repeat internally. Something like, I'm not good at this. I always mess this up. I'm not that kind of person. Now change the ending. Yet, that one word keeps identity open. It tells your brain, this isn't permanent. And that changes how you show up. Think about this. If you constantly doubt yourself, others feel permission to doubt you too. But when you trust yourself enough to act, others adjust. They always do. Let me ask you directly, who are you becoming when no one is watching? And does that version deserve respect? Because respect doesn't start outside. It starts with the identity you practice daily. This is why identity shapes how others treat you. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your self-image, change the identity, and everything else follows. The fourth secret to earning respect is this. This is where everything splits. Two paths, two decisions. One feels good now. One changes your life later. Most people choose comfort. Highly respected people choose something harder. Let me tell you a story. There was someone everyone liked. Easy to work with. Always agreeable. They avoided tension. Smiled through discomfort. Said yes when they wanted to say no. And for a while, it worked. People were pleasant. Conversation stayed smooth. But something else happened. Their voice started to fade. Decisions were made without them. Boundaries were crossed quietly. Respect slipped away slowly. Not because they were bad at what they did, because they taught people that comfort mattered more than principles. Then came a moment, a small one. They were asked to accept something. That didn't sit right. Old pattern, stay quiet. New choice, speak up. So they did. Calm, clear, no drama, and the room shifted. Not everyone liked it. But something else happened. People took them seriously. Here's the psychology. The brain tracks consistency. When your actions align with your values, people trust your signal. When you compromise repeatedly, your signal weakens. And respect doesn't disappear suddenly. It erodes. One avoided conversation at a time. Let's be honest. Short-term comfort is tempting. Avoid the awkward talk. Delay the hard decision. Keep things smooth. But comfort has a hidden cost. You lose leverage. You lose clarity. You lose self-respect. And once you lose self-respect, others feel it. Ask yourself this. Where are you staying silent to keep things easy? Where are you tolerating behavior? What drains you? Where are you choosing peace now over respect later? Because every time you do, you're sending a message. This is acceptable. Highly respected people don't chase conflict. But they don't avoid it either. They understand something critical. Temporary discomfort builds permanent respect. They say no early. They address issues directly. They walk away when values are crossed. Not loudly, not emotionally, but decisively. Here's something most people miss. Respect isn't built in big moments. It's built in small, uncomfortable ones. The conversation you don't want to have. The boundary you hesitate to set. The standard you're tempted to lower. That's where identity is forged. Let me ask you something powerful. What would change in your life if you stopped trading long-term respect for short-term relief? Who would you become if you honored your values consistently? Because once you do, they always do. This is why long-term respect beats short-term comfort. Comfort keeps you liked. Respect keeps you relevant. And the moment you choose principle over ease, you stop shrinking. You start leading. Even if you never say the word. The fifth and final psychology secret is this. This is the final shift. And it's the one most people misunderstand. Presence is not performance. It's not charm. It's not trying to impress. Presence is attention. And highly respected people mastered it early. Let me tell you a story. There was someone who didn't speak much, not quiet, just intentional. When they were in a conversation, they were there. No scanning the room, no rushing to respond, no checking out mentally. People noticed, not because of what was said, but because of how it felt. Here's what happened. When others spoke, this person listened, not to reply, to understand. They asked one thoughtful question, then stayed silent, and suddenly the other person leaned in, because being fully seen is rare, and rare things carry value. Here's the psychology. The brain rewards focus. When someone gives you their full attention, your nervous system relaxes. You feel safe, you feel important, and when people feel important, they respect the source. Not because you lowered yourself, because you elevated the interaction. Let's clear something up. This is not people-pleasing. People-pleasing shrinks you. Presence grounds you. Highly respected people don't agree with everything. They don't nod automatically. They don't abandon their position. They listen first, then respond with intention. That balance is powerful. Think about this. Have you ever spoken to someone who was half listening? They nodded, but their eyes wandered. How did it feel? Exactly. Now flip it. Think of someone who made you feel fully heard. You remember them, not because they impressed you, because they connected with you. Here's a subtle shift. Highly respected people wait to understand. That pause does something. It slows the moment, it adds weight, and when they finally speak, their words land. Let me ask you something real. When you're with someone, are you competing for attention or creating presence? Because attention is loud. Presence is strong. Here's something practical. Next conversation. Put your phone away. Maintain eye contact. Breathe. When the other person finishes speaking, pause for 1 second. Then respond. That pause signals thoughtfulness. And thoughtfulness builds trust. Here's the deeper truth. Presence is confidence without ego. It says, I don't need to dominate to matter. And that's why people respect it. Highly respected people don't shrink to make others comfortable. They stay grounded so others can rise. They hold space. And in that space, influence grows. Ask yourself this. What would change in your relationships if people felt truly seen around you? What opportunities would open if your presence became memorable? Because once you master this, you don't chase respect. You create it quietly, consistently, powerfully. So here's the truth. Let's bring this home. Because if you've been listening closely, you already know the truth. Highly respected people didn't discover a secret formula. They made a series of quiet decisions. Over time, they learned to control emotion. Before emotion controlled them, they chose clarity over being liked. They shaped their identity long before the world responded. They accepted short-term discomfort to earn long-term respect. And they learned how to be present without shrinking who they are. Not one big move. 5 small disciplines. Here's what matters. Respect is not a personality trait. It's not reserved for a certain age, role, or background. It's a signal. And every signal you send teaches people how to respond to you. Think about your own life. Where could you pause instead of reacting? Where could you speak with clarity? Instead of caution, where could you upgrade your self-talk? Where could you choose the principle over comfort? Where could you be fully present instead of being distracted? Because those moments, they're happening every day. Quietly. Most people wait for confidence before they act. Highly respected people act and confidence follows. They don't announce change, they embody it. Here's the shift. You don't demand respect, you demonstrate it. In how you listen, in how you respond, in how you decide. And over time, the world adjusts. It always does. So let me leave you with this. The next room you walk into, nothing about you has to change on the outside. No new title, no new approval, just one internal decision. And if you make it consistently, 1 year from now, people will speak to you differently, look at you differently, trust you differently. Because respect isn't given, it's built. One calm response, one clear word, one aligned choice, one grounded presence at a time. And here's the real question. Who do you become when you live like this every day? Because once you step into that identity, there's no going back. And the world will notice before you ever say a word. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, my friends.